Hello, I'm Paul Bearman, and this is Talking About The Who, the podcast dedicated to that nice rock and roll band from Shepherd's Bush, London. Welcome to episode 3 of season 2, featuring my conversation with Who tribute band guitarist and recently first-time published Who author, Dante DiCarlo. If you've been enjoying the podcast, please consider giving us a 5-star rating on your podcast app of choice. And if you'd like to support us financially and also gain access to our bonus episodes and exclusive live stream shows, sign up for our Talking About The Who membership for just £3 or $3 a month at patreon.com/Talking About The Who. A few things before we get to my conversation with Dante. First of all, The Who are days away from starting their farewell tour of North America, and if you're going to see them, then I hope you have a great time. Meanwhile, over here in the UK, there's still time to buy tickets for Dante DiCarlo's band, Who's Next, live at the 100 Club in Oxford Street, London, on Thursday, 4th of September. This will be a gig to celebrate the release of Dante's book, The Who, Album by Album, which came out in May, and the gig will feature not only Who's Next, but also support from the Hornets, a 60s influenced mod and R&B band. And on top of that, the gig will also feature me. Yes, I'll be there to interview Dante about the new book. In fact, this will be the first time I've ever interviewed someone live on stage. But it'll be alright, won't it? Tickets are available via the link in the show notes, and you'll be able to pick up a copy of the new book at the gig, as well as enjoy an evening of fantastic live music. This will be my second time seeing Who's Next live. As I mentioned in episode 1 of season 2 a few weeks back, I went to the Cavern Club in Liverpool to see them back in February. I'd always wanted to go back to Liverpool and see a bit more of the city, since playing at the Cavern myself in 2006. So when I found out Who's Next were playing there earlier this year, it felt like an ideal time to go back. Me and my girlfriend met Dante for a pint before the gig in the Cavern pub, and, naturally, we ended up mostly talking about The Who. One thing we talked about was how susceptible The Who could be to making mistakes on stage, and how it was something we loved about the band. A short while later, we took up position towards the back of the audience to watch Dante and his band on the Cavern Club stage. The very first thing that impressed me about the band was the fact that Mike, the drummer, was wearing Keith Moon's red Who Are You promo video t-shirt, but with his own name printed on it. The gig started with I Can't Explain and Substitute, before Pictures of Lily completed the opening 1-2-3 punch. Then came So Sad About Us, and this was the first of several songs that kind of made me go, okay, interesting. I was even more impressed when soon afterwards they pulled Fortune Teller out of the bag and then went straight into Tattoo. I was feeling very satisfied with the potent mix of the classics and the deeper cuts, which soon included a version of I Don't Know Myself. But then the most surprising moment of the evening came. Just before playing Drowned from Quadrophenia, Dante came up to the mic and said they hadn't played this one too often, and therefore there might be a few cock-ups. But he preceded this by saying, I was talking to Paul Bearman from the Talking About The Who podcast before the gig about making mistakes live. I hadn't been expecting to hear my name said on stage. The problem was, he said it at the exact moment I was taking my phone out of my pocket to take a few photos. The shock of hearing my name caused me to nearly drop my phone, and I spent the next 10 seconds or so frantically trying to keep it from smashing on the floor, at the same time as everyone was looking round to see who it was Dante was talking about. It was the sort of moment where you want to look cool and unfazed about the whole thing, instead of looking like a prat performing a juggling routine with your phone. Luckily, I managed to stop it from hitting the Cavern Club floor, and proceeded to try and regain a little bit of composure. There were more deeper cuts in the setlist during the second half of the gig, including Getting in Tune, Pure and Easy, and one that really surprised me, the Overture from Tommy. Won't Get Fooled Again and My Generation brought things to a close, before an encore of Summertime Blues and Shaking All Over. Another thing I was impressed with during the gig was the backing tracks that the band used for certain songs, as they weren't the original backing tracks, but self-made versions, and they sounded great. All in all, it was a brilliant gig, and if you get a chance to see Who's Next live, you should definitely take it. As well as the 100 Club in September, they've got plenty of gigs booked all over the UK throughout the rest of 2025, so give their Facebook and Instagram pages a follow to stay up to date with everything they've got going on. My conversation with Dante DiCarlo that you're about to hear was recorded remotely in June, and is mainly focused around his time in Who's Next and what it's like to be the Pete Townshend of a tribute band. There was no talk about his new book, as we're saving that for the 100 Club gig. But there is a bonus episode available to our Talking About the Who members, which features more of our conversation, including Dante telling me about his encounters with the cast of the Quadrophenia movie, seeing the Who 42 times, and meeting various members of the band. To hear this and other bonus episodes, head on over to patreon.com/Talking About the Who to sign up to our membership. And so, without any further ado, here's my conversation with Dante DiCarlo. Right, let's start by talking about the band you're in, Who's Next, Who tribute band. Can you tell me how that all started and how you got involved in it?
Yeah, so the band started quite a bit before I did. I think I came into the band when they'd been going like almost 10 years. And it was started by a friend of mine called Craig Adicott, a bass guitarist who was actually friends with John Entwistle for a while. He was doing some sort of like a bass show, like one of those, music shows where it's different companies there showcasing their instruments and that sort of thing. And I think he was working for Dean Guitars, and he saw John Entwistle, who was heckling him because he was playing some Who lines or something. And he got to be friends with John Entwistle, and he used to go to his house, had a few of his basses. And then I think it was shortly after John died, he decided to start a tribute band. And I sort of came into it because I ended up in a different Who tribute band for a while, a very short-lived one. And we were a three-piece initially. We had another bassist who used to sing. And that all started because I was doing some videos on YouTube of me playing guitar. And there was another guy, this young guy called Andy Hughes, who was doing mainly drum covers. And he was really, really excellent. And he used to leave me messages. And we decided to get together to have a jam. And this other bass player that Andy knew got involved. And we started this tribute band called, I wanted to call it Who's Missing because we didn't have a singer at that time, right? But the bassist wanted to call it Who's Best. So we did that. And then there was a Who convention in 2010. So this would have been, I think it was 2010 or 2011. And we hadn't done a gig yet, but we applied to play it. And the guy running it, a guy called Tom Matchett, said yes. So we thought, oh shit, we've got to actually like try and get another gig before this, so we can actually, be up to speed, And we played a lot of like rare, because there was us and there was Who's Next, and there was another Who tribute band on as well. So I was thinking, well, there's three bands. People are going to get sick of hearing, Can't Explain, Substitute, Won't Get Fooled Again. So we did a set of playing mostly like rarities, like Glow Girl, Melancholia, stuff like that. Time Is Passing. We did quite a few John Entwistle ones because our bassist singing. And then Who's Next? We saw Who's Next, and they sort of. I remember Craig saying, "Yeah, we were supposed to be the headline band, and this other band came along and sort of stole the night because they're doing all these rare songs that all these Who fans want to hear." But they were really nice guys, so I ended up then depping for their guitarist, really nice guy called Andy Rimmer, for like a couple of years. Just when he couldn't make a gig, he went to Glastonbury one time, and he was just like, "Can you do this gig for me? Because I want to go to Glastonbury." So I ended up doing that, and then he decided to leave the band, and I was asked to join, and that was like 2013. So I kind of got in like via the back door, just through doing another band, being on the same bill as Who's Next, and then eventually kind of just depping for them for a little while, and then actually getting the call.
So how long had you been playing guitar at this point?
So I'd played guitar, see it like properly since I was about 17. So it, yeah, it'd been over 10. It had been roughly sort of 10 years. I had played guitar a little bit before that, but it was very basic kind of. I probably when I was about 11 and 12, I had a couple of lessons and I could play chords and I could play a couple of things, but I never wasn't really sort of dedicated. I never really started playing properly till I was like 16, 17.
So at the point you joined the first Who tribute band, Who's Best? Did you say they were called?
Yeah, it was called Who's Best.
I think Who's Missing would have been a better name, but
I think so. I mean, eventually we did get a singer for like one or two gigs, who was really good, and then our bass player just decided to abruptly leave the band with no real notice, and then it all fell apart. But yeah.
So how many Who songs did you know when you first joined Who's Best? Did you have to
As
learn?
in,
Yeah, did you have to learn a lot of them, or did you already know how to play them?
I think I had to learn a fair few. I mean, I did know how to play certain Who songs, um, but like not anywhere near a full set. And also a lot of songs that I knew, I was really playing them, but not. I was playing them in a fashion. I was playing kind of my version of them, or near enough, but not with the level of accuracy that I'd want to have to be in a tribute band. And I was just playing kind of that. So if I was playing like a G, a D, or whatever, I was playing a standard open chord version where a lot of what Pete does on guitar, um, he has certain kind of chord shape that he uses. And the more songs you learn, you kind of do realize that. And so when you hear him play something, you go, oh, he's playing that chord that he plays. It might be a simple chord, but it's the way he plays it. Um, and just sometimes he just plays stuff in an unusual voicing. So to get it to sound really accurate, you've got to do that. But a lot of that stuff works because he's got the whole band. He's got John playing bass, and he can play sort of partial chords. He can play different stuff. When you're playing it on your own, sometimes it just makes more sense to play like a full open chord or whatever. So just going through and actually like listening to the records and thinking, no, I need to play that. Like, what's he playing on that? I know what chord it is, but he's not playing it in the same way that I play it. He's playing it on a different place of the neck or whatever, and it works because it's got the whole band in there. It becomes something a little bit different. There's a lot of times as well where what Pete's playing on guitar and what John's playing, they don't actually match. I mean, they work, but Pete might be playing a chord and John won't be playing the same root note of that chord. He'll be playing something completely different. And it's when you start to look into that, it's really interesting, like how they worked as a band.
Yeah, I can imagine actually. Have you done the whole like AI separation of Who tracks and that kind of thing yet, or?
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing this recently because when I was initially learning Who songs, the best you could do is to try and really listen to them. And on certain stuff, I mean, live at Leeds is a good way to learn certain stuff because it's really like the bass and guitar is kind of hard panned left and right. So if you turn up one channel, or if you just listen to the right channel, the guitar channel, you do sort of cut out the bass, and you can hear stuff more closely. But with this AI stuff, I've got this. I use one called Moises. It's an app. I pay, I don't know, about £3 a month or something for one of the versions of it. And I've recently fed a lot of Who songs into there to try and hear, and it's amazing. It's so cool when you can actually hear what the guitar's doing, what the bass is doing, isolated. There have been songs recently where I play them differently now, or bits that I blagged before. I'm like, oh, now I can hear what he's actually playing on that, and it's different, or it's more interesting than I thought it was.
So what about the rest of the band? Because Who's Next is a four-piece, vocals, guitar, bass, drums. I think when I came to see you guys at the Cavern a few months ago, and one thing that struck me, and I don't really know what I was expecting, but straight away you realise that Carl's singing very much kind of in his own way. I mean, I guess you can't sort of help but match some of Daltrey's phrasing or however you want to put it, but he very much sings it in his own way, and it kind of throws you at first, but then I quickly realised, well, no, he should be doing it in his own way. It's
Yeah.
You're not literally trying to be the Who; it's your interpretation of their music. But with Max the bass player and Mike the drummer, are they very much? I need to get this exactly the same, or is it more? I mean, I guess yeah. How far do you go into playing it exactly like the Who?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tricky one, particularly with a band like The Who, because so much of what they did live was improvisation, and they never really played anything the same way twice. So it's not like if you go and see a Beatles tribute, I've seen Beatles tributes where everything is very spot on, very accurate, every note is perfect. If you try and do that with The Who, I think you like lose the spirit of The Who. Um, So yeah, with Carl, I mean, he's got like his range is sort of different from Daltrey's in a way. Like he sort of some bits are a bit low for him. There are certain songs where if we've got like a harmony part, I'll actually end up singing the lead part sometimes, and Carl will do the harmony. Like on an early track like "So Sad About Us," don't really notice those things because it's not. They're all singing in a very similar style, so it doesn't really matter who takes what part. Um, for me, I find the trouble is trying to improvise, but trying to improvise in Pete's style because I don't really want to be copying everything. Like I used to do the thing of when we played Young Man Blues, I used to play it like live at Leeds, pretty much spot on, you know. And then I thought this is kind of boring because it's not because there's like 40 other versions of Young Man Blues where he does something completely different and they're all amazing. So then I used to nick bits from other versions and just randomly put them in. And then, sometimes I'll improvise, but I'm trying to improvise in Pete's style. And sometimes there is a battle because I kind of want to play what I want to play. Because when you really get into the moment, it's fun and you want to improvise and sort of just play with your own creativity. But you have to stay sort of the right, you can't stray too far into doing other stuff. You can't start playing like Jimmy Page would play it, or you know what I mean. You have to keep it like that. I'd say like Mike is a massive, massive Who fan, and I think he nailed the Moon style really well when he came into the band, and we were rehearsing songs that we maybe hadn't played before, and I'd start playing it and I'd look around and smile because I'm like, it sounds like The Who because of just what he was doing on the drum, which on certain songs, I'd never really considered before. I remember we were playing I'm One, that was one we always played, but he was properly putting in the kind of the fills at the end of the chorus, which I can't remember who was in the band previously because we've had so many drummers. But it just sounded different. It just sounded more like The Who. And yeah, he's really good at that. I mean, Max is a massive Who fan, massive John Entwistle fan, but that's not been sort of his main style. So I think he's had to work on playing again, like sometimes we'll be doing a song and he might say, oh yeah, what's the chord to that bit again? And I'll go, the chord to this, but the bass is not doing that. don't copy don't copy what I'm doing because John is doing something completely different. Um, so yeah, it's a different. I'd say like Mike is probably the one who manages to nail the parts sort of best out of everyone. He's just got a natural Keith Moon kind of thing going on.
Yeah, and even down to the way he actually plays with. So I'm going to do this visually, it's not going to work on the podcast, but kind of hitting cymbals from side to side, if that's the way to describe it. But it's, I mean, I play drums. I've tried to do that. I think I tried for about 30 seconds and quickly realised, yeah, I don't think I can do this. But
Yeah, it's a unique way of sort of playing. Like I remember because I started playing drums for what probably about 10 years back, and then I had complaints from neighbours and stuff like that. Spoil sports. But I tried to do the sideways thing, and I tried to do the Ringo thing of doing the sort of swishing over the top of the hi hats instead of hitting it up and down, sort of like glancing off it kind of thing.
yeah,
And I was like, how does anyone do that? Like both of them are so sort of idiosyncratic ways of playing drums, but it does add something to the visuals. You know, Mike does the kind of like he'll air drum in the bits where he's not where he's not actually drumming, and do those mannerisms, which I think is it's really important because the Who were a really visual band, as well as being great sound wise. So
yeah. I mean, you probably have got that perfect mix of, I don't want to say copying the Who, but how do I describe it? There's certain elements of the Who you're portraying, but you're also kind of doing it in your own way, and I think that probably is the best way of doing it for a tribute band.
yeah, you don't want to get too close where it's just like it's almost like a parody kind of thing. Like there needs to be some creativity in there, I think.
Yeah. So let's talk about basically being the Pete Townsend of the band. So you do all the windmills and you jump about and that kind of thing. Windmilling is something else that I think I've tried it once and thought, yeah, I'm not trying that again. How long does it take to learn how to do a windmill? Because I think you're doing it properly. I mean, I don't want to sound patronising, but
Yeah,
you're definitely doing it properly. And how the hell do you do it?
yeah, there is like a knack to doing it. I mean, Pete, he just fully goes for it, and obviously he, injures himself quite a lot. I used to do that a lot more than now. I've kind of wimped out on it a little bit, and I'm a little bit more calculated in doing it. Like when I first started to try and do it, I was just doing it because it was like a cool move that I wanted to do. I wasn't in a band yet. And then I used to do these videos on YouTube, and I used to try and windmill, and some of them may still be up there on YouTube. I've actually got to take them down because some of them are really embarrassing. They're not very good. And I would just kind of like do one, maybe do a couple, and they were quite slow. And then as I actually got into the band, I realized that, well, I need to make this look good. I need to make it actually look proper. I'd done one video. There was a competition that the Who's website had to win something. I can't remember what it was to win. I think it was to win a guitar. And it was the best windmill kind of thing. And so I then just thought, I have to win this guitar. So I then just put on a guitar, just practice doing it really fast, like really like cut my fingers and hurt myself and everything. Didn't win the guitar. I think it was only me and my friend Andy, who was the drummer of Who's Best, because he plays guitar as well. He's very talented multi-instrumentalist now. I think it was only us that did like a proper attempt at doing the windmill, and then someone else won it because they'd done a video that was really professional, where they basically they were in their like garage in America, and they put on their guitar. It's a bit like a Back to the Future kind of thing. It was all shot with different angles, and they broke a string or something like that, and then they broke the guitar. It was like, it wasn't a proper windmill, but it was a very good video. But the upshot of that was I was kind of like, I can do this. I can actually windmill quite fast and physically get my shoulder to go round, because that's like part of it, to get your shoulder to go round fast enough. Then it's not having all the blood rush into your hand, which really hurts when that happens. And then it's just like hitting the strings is the third part. And the only way that I found to do it is that you've got to kind of like, if you build up momentum in the swing, it becomes easier doing it, because then it's not so much from your shoulder. It's kind of just like your arm takes on its own momentum. And you got to kind of like bring your arm out. Obviously, this is not going to work on, it's only work if it's a video. podcast.
I could try and describe it, but I'm not sure I could do a very good job.
You got to sort of like lift your arm out, but bring it away from your body, and as you swing it round, and also he kind of he comes up, so he's hitting the thinner strings first. He does sometimes do a windmill in the other direction, but most of them are swinging his arms upwards. And as you get closer towards a neck, to actually bring your hand in, so it's almost like you're punching the neck. Because if you just swing your arm around and you don't take your arm away from the body and then bring it back in, you will either miss the strings completely, or you'll just like whack your hand on the controls of the guitar. Like you have to move out and in, kind of thing. And if it goes right, then you produce a chord, it sounds good. If it goes wrong, you either hurt yourself or you just miss it. And I do miss them occasionally, but not too many times. But yeah, it has gone, it can go. I break nails all the time from doing it. And also the plectrums, like after one gig, a plectrum just looks absolutely destroyed. Because you just take so many notches out of the edge of the plectrum doing it. It's like, yeah, I have to use a lot. If someone can invent a plectrum that can withstand the windmilling, I will gladly endorse them.
Yeah, that's definitely needed. That was a very in-depth explanation. I'm very happy about that.
I've actually got a video on YouTube showing you how to windmill.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because someone said, "Can you do?" A few people said, "Can you do a tutorial on doing this?" And I was like, "Okay, I'll do one." And then I've known people who've like had friends who've seen it and gone, "Oh, is this like my friend was talking about this video? Is that you in it doing this video?" Probably like the best watched video that I've ever had on YouTube.
Oh, fair play. So have you had, apart from, how painful is it when you lose a fingernail from windmilling? Is it kind of the adrenaline keeps you going and you don't notice, or is it you do it and it's straight away like, that really fucking hurt?
I mean, yeah, it hurts initially, and then, yeah, mainly the sort of adrenaline of playing the gig gets you by. What does happen also is that if not just from losing a fingernail, but I've cut my thumb like loads of times, and then when you get blood on the plectrum, it then gets really sticky and it sort of gets awkward to hold the plectrum because it's got blood on it. And then it does start to like throb after the initial, after you've come down from the gig. But also whenever you get it wet, so whenever you're like washing your hands or anything, like it really stings because of that. So yeah, like doing the gig is not, a big problem. It's just, it's mainly after the gig, and then not having a fingernail for a while. I think I've heard Pete has someone had them glued back on or whatever. I mean, I've never lost that much of a fingernail. It's more across the quick.
Oh, okay.
And then you just got to wait for it to grow back. But,
so how long does it take to grow back?
I suppose probably a couple of weeks or something like that.
That's not too bad.
It depends how much of it you've lost, but yeah, it mainly just cracks. And another thing, I have to remember to try and keep my nails short, because the longer they are, the more chance you've got of actually catching it.
Yeah, I can well imagine. So you say that he's kind of bottling it a little bit with the windmilling more these days. Is that like what is it? Is it because you're getting older and is a bit of fear crept in, or is it kind of, well, I don't need to do that all the time. I'm established now as that guy in the tribute bar that needs to keep windmilling.
I'll tell you what it is more than anything. It's like the more sort of aggressive I am with doing the windmilling, the more chance I've got of sort of damaging the guitar more than myself. Because I used to do I was windmilling a lot. And then I used to also sometimes use a microphone stand to sort of like saw the neck of the guitar, kind of like run the neck of the guitar along the guitar stand. And I noticed after a while I had all these dents in the frets, that some of them were actually like catching the strings when I was trying to bend the strings. And I think it's mainly doing the mic stand thing, but it also, I think, is partly from windmilling on the guitar and like hitting it really hard. And sometimes I might have caught the edge of the guitar as well and just sort of like knocked dents into it. So I started to think I'm going to be a little bit kinder to the guitars because unlike Pete Townsend, I can't just sort of break it and then have the money to repair it and everything like that. So that was a big part of it. Also, I was thinking, well, I am doing most of the windmills and I am doing them quite fast and managing to do them without actually hurting myself. So if I can do that, I might as well do that instead of just fully swing my arm. And I'm probably also going to miss like quite a few windmills doing that, as well as also, you know, hurting myself. So it's a little bit more calculated in how I do it now. But I think it still comes across like visually the same, and I still hit the majority of the windmills. So
Yeah, so it's more quality, not quantity these days.
yeah, I mean, I do a lot of windmills, but I think like when I get into like a momentum of doing them, then I'm pretty much hitting every one and not at risk of like destroying my hand.
Nah, sounds very sensible. Are there any of Pete's movements or actions or anything he does that you've kind of thought, oh, I'm going to start doing that, but no one's ever noticed it? It's so subtle that no one's ever picked up on it. Have you got anything like that you do? That's probably a bit of a weird question. I don't know how easy that is to answer, but
I think there's a few things just from specific performances that I find funny that I might do. So a couple of them. So one of them is I think it's at the end of Won't Get Fooled Again on Shepperton. I'm pretty sure it's Won't Get Fooled Again, where he kind of struts across stage with his like fists tucked in on his chest and his elbows out, and he kind of does this little march.
yeah.
And it's just such a weird thing that I've only ever seen him do on that. But sometimes at gigs, I'll remember it and I'll do it, and I'll go over to Mike. I'll just strut up to him, hoping that he sort of catches it because it'll be quite funny. I used to do the jig on Barbara O'Reilly that he does on Charlton 74. He does a kind of like Irish jig, and he's got his hands up in the air and then he's sort of like dancing across the stage. And I used to do that quite a lot. So there's a really weird thing that there's some version of My Wife where he's playing and he just sort of starts doing this weird little sort of like dance on stage, which I just found really funny. So sometimes I do that. And I think people are probably looking at me thinking, what the hell are you doing? Unless they've seen that version, and then they'll know. I really want to do a kick over the microphone stand, but I've tried it a few times and I'm not quite limber enough to do it unless I put the mic stand a bit lower. And I'm probably, if I do it, it'll probably be the Live Aid version where I fall on my ass. But that's on the list of things to maybe I'm going to try and take up yoga or something like that and get a bit fitter.
Yeah, I was watching that version of Won't Get Fooled Again from Live Aid with my mum quite recently, and gets to that bit where Pete does the kick over the stand, and you don't see it, but you can tell he's falling on his ass.
Yeah.
And then Roger does the whole forward roll off the drum riser, and my mum said, "Oh, was that deliberate? Do you think they did that just for like the showmanship aspect of it?" And I think no, I think he falls on his ass, and Roger, in solidarity, then just does a forward roll.
Yeah, I think so. I think Pete, he did loads of those microphone kickstands, and maybe he hadn't done them in a few years.
Yeah.
And he went over.
Fair play to him for trying it after however many 3 years of not doing it.
Funny enough, right? I saw this video the other day. I can't remember. Someone posted it up, and it's a clip of the Who in 1972 in Europe somewhere. And it's a clip I hadn't seen. That I think a little bit of it had been used in The Kids Are All Right, maybe on the credit sequence, but this was like a whole thing. And Pete, at some point, I don't see why it happens, but Pete just falls over with his guitar. And it looks like because he falls on the guitar as well. So he was falling over like even, back in the 70s. So yeah, in 85, totally forgivable.
Yeah. Yeah, going back to copying some of his stage movements. There was something, I think it was Barbara O'Reilly when I saw you guys at the Cavern, and you did the kind of shimmy that he does in The Kids Are Right. I think that's the best way to describe it.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's sort of like little arse wiggle thing.
Yeah, but
Is it that? Yeah.
as soon as you did it, it just hit me as something so familiar. And I thought, bloody hell, that's really good. And it took me a while to realise where I'd seen it, and I think it is The Kids Are Right version.
Yeah,
But I just thought, oh, fair play, because that instantly hit me as that I recognise that.
yeah. I used to do that at a lot of gigs. Now it's kind of one of those things that if I remember to do it, I'll do it. But it's just one of those moments that I remember watching that and thinking that was a really funny moment. So it's just all these things that I've seen Pete do over the years and over, watching footage of, any gig that I could find. And there's always bits that stand out where I was thinking like, oh, that's really funny or that's really cool. And then those are the things that come into my mind. Like even certain things that I said sometimes on Barbara O'Reilly, I will do the sort of the scream. I think he does I think it's on the Shepperton thing. He kind of does a kind of scream at the beginning while the like a yee-hoo kind of thing. I'll just do that.
Yeah, it sounds really fun being Pete Townsend in a tribute band. Actually, easy get to just prance about the stage.
Yeah, it can be a lot of fun. Sometimes the like the windmills I don't find that sort of taxing to do. Sometimes the jumping around stage stuff. Sometimes that can be a bit. I used to like because people used to go up to me and say, and a lot of the times it would be a woman that would come up to me at a gig, and this is going back 10 years ago, like shortly after I joined the band. And oftentimes she would be a nurse, and she would say, "I'm a nurse, and if you keep doing that, your shoulder's going to be destroyed by the time you're 30." And I would say, "I'm already 30 at that time, right?" So joke's on you, because and I'm 41 now, and the shoulder's fine. But I kept on saying to people, it will be my knees that are the problem because I would do this thing of jumping and landing on my knees, and I started doing knee slides, and I kept on forgetting to get knee pads or anything like that. And roll on to like earlier this year where Pete Townsend's talking about getting having a knee replacement. Fair enough, he's 80, but saying, why did I think I could ever land on my knees like that? And I'm thinking, yeah, it is going to be the knees.
It's probably quite useful actually having Pete Townsend that much older because it's almost like you can see your future and you think, oh, maybe I shouldn't do that.
Yeah, it can be handy, but I remember in about 2016 he started to do a knee slide on certain gigs again, and he was like just past 70. And I was thinking, oh shit, this means I have to do it now because I can't. You can't have 71-year-old Pete Townsend going out there and doing a knee slide, and I'm in my 30s. If I have a stage where I could do it, I have to do it now.
I love that idea as well. These nurses are coming to your gigs and, oh, I'm a bit concerned about his arm with that windmilling. I'd better go and say something.
I know, seriously, at least sort of 3 or 4 times a nurse came up to me and said, you need to stop doing that because your rotator cuff gonna go."
Well, at least they care, I guess.
Yeah.
Do you play guitar in any other bands?
I do, yeah. I've got a couple of other bands. I mean, I do a more local band kind of around southeast London, Kent kind of way called Vince Lightning and the Thunderboltz, which started off as when I joined, I thought it was going to, because the band's been going for a long, long time. We've got the guy who is the leader of the band, Vince, and he's like a big rockabilly fan. So it started off being a kind of rockabilly thing, I think, and his wife Dawn is in the band doing vocals as well. And but when I joined, he had all these songs which are original songs as well. So we'll do like covers, like a bit of Stray Cat, a bit of 50s rock and roll, Little Richard, Chuck Berry, Jerry Lee Lewis, that sort of thing. And then he's got songs in that style as well. But he's also written songs that are more kind of like punky or new wave, because a lot of these songs were written in the 80s, like in the early 80s and stuff. And we just actually been recording an album, which I think's being mixed pretty soon. Of all the original songs that he's got. So I've been doing that, and then I also I kind of dep for another band called Lord Algie, which is Max and Mike out of Who's Next. They've been doing this three-piece band for many, many years, and that's all covers. It's very. I mean, there is a bit of Who in there. There's stuff like the Beatles, Stones, but also 50s rock and roll again, and a bit of like soul stuff, James Brown, that kind of thing. So yeah, I do those kind of things. I'm doing working on a duo with Max as well. We're going out and just doing a kind of a part acoustic, part electric duo. So yeah, I've got quite a few things going on at the moment. I keep on meaning to do my own band, doing my own music because I have sort of recorded my own stuff, but just me and my friend Andy playing drums and me playing everything else. And I keep on meaning to form a band to actually go out and play some gigs, but I just never seem to find the time to do it.
Yeah, because I was going to ask. I think it's something that I've always wondered about people in tribute bands is, I mean, as nice as it is being in a tribute band, and I'm sure, the money's pretty good and everything, and I'm sure you always go down well at a gig, but does it kind of get in the way of doing your own stuff? And is there an element of frustration that you kind of want to break out of? I mean, it's probably good for being in a Who tribute band, like you said, there's a lot of improvisation, which is keeping in the Who style, but is it frustrating not being able to do more of your own stuff?
Yes, I mean it's definitely frustrating not doing my own music, but I wouldn't say doing Who's Next is necessarily the biggest obstacle in that. Obviously, it does take up a lot of my time, but I almost look at it as being like my day job because I do make most of my money through doing gigs, um, whether it's Who's Next or other gigs. So if I wasn't in Who's Next, I would have a 9 to 5 job probably, and that would probably get in the way of doing original stuff because I'd be like, well, I'm tired from work, I can't rehearse, I don't think I only get the weekends to find time to actually do something. So whatever it is, something's always going to get in the way of doing that. Um, the thing that's mainly sort of held me back over the years getting something together is just finding the people to do it, really, more than being in another band. Obviously, but now I am in sort of two bands and depth for another band, that does make it a little bit more difficult because the time I get off from Who's Next is then divided up by other things. But I could still do it if I just sort of found the right people and put a little bit more effort into it. Really, just a little bit of my own fault, my own fault.
Yeah, and I think as you get older as well, it's just difficult to get people in the same room,
Yeah,
even just to rehearse.
yeah. Everyone's got like schedules, and they often, they just don't coincide. So, and that's even if you find it's finding the people that want to do it, have the time to do it, and sort of fit what you want to do, and getting those three things lined up is quite tricky.
Yeah, definitely. How often do you rehearse with Who's Next? Because obviously you're pretty tight, and I'm guessing you probably rehearse slightly more than the Who do.
Um, Probably, yeah. That's not saying much though.
No, exactly.
um, yeah, I mean, I would. It would be better if we rehearsed more. We probably would, but the way the band's made up is that me, Mike, the drummer, Max, the bassist, we all live in London, in separate parts of London, but we all live in London. Our singer Carl's from Wales. Well, he's not from Wales, but he lives in Wales. So getting a rehearsal together is a tricky thing. We have done rehearsals where either Carl will come to London because the next day we have a gig in London or we have a gig somewhere nearby, or we have met up in a sort of middle point, sort of met up in Reading, somewhere like that. So what we usually do is me, Max, and Mike, if we're rehearsing anything new, um, we'll meet up as a three-piece and do a rehearsal or a couple of rehearsals just to get the instrumental thing tight. And Max will sing or I will attempt to sing, and that gets really funny when you get into the rehearsal room and you've got a song to do, and you need to have ideally you need to have someone singing just so you've got your place in the song. It's easier to keep place, and then you go and try and sing something that Roger Daltrey sings, and you go, wow, that's pretty tough. And then Carl comes in and sings it, and you go, respect, well done. Because then we'll go and do the rehearsal with Carl, or we'll send him some audio recordings of us rehearsing the song so he knows how we're doing it. And that tends to be, and those things have tended to happen the last 3 years. We sort of have one at the beginning of the year. We'll have a couple of rehearsals as a 3-piece. Then we'll have one or two with Carl. And that's kind of it for the rest of, we might have one in the middle of the year if we're playing somewhere where, Carl can come to London and do rehearsal the day before the gig. But usually it's just that we just try and keep gigging as much as possible so that's keeping us sharp, And then we rehearse stuff in the sound checks before gigs. But I find like 10% of getting a song into shape you do on the road anyway. Like you can rehearse something endlessly, but it's a completely different thing when you do it live.
Yeah, and it's probably a more exciting way of doing it as well, rather than trying to get it nailed down. And like you say, are there any songs you've either not yet got around to doing in Who's Next that you would like to do? And are there any songs you've attempted and you've given up because it was too difficult?
Yeah, there always seem to be songs knocking around that we want to do. I think me and also I think Max, we wanted to do Slip Kid. And we have got a kind of backing track thing with the percussion noises on it to do Slip Kid. We were planning to do it. It's just one of the ones that's sort of fallen to the bottom of the list. Also, our drummer Mike, he's not fond of doing the backing track ones. I mean, he's fine with all the ones we have to do, but any ones that we've got to bring a backing track in, he's not that keen on them because he has to have like the click up really, really loud in the headphones, and after a while, it's really deafening. So there is that one. There's quite a few from Tommy, like because we're trying to get more songs from Tommy, including Acid Queen, Eyesight to the Blind, possibly Christmas. I think I wanted to do Go to the Mirror. Those ones we really wanted to do. As far as ones that we tried and we sort of knocked on the head, we did at the last rehearsals we were doing, we did have Relay that we were doing. And I think we will do Relay again. It was just that we needed to adjust the backing track because it wasn't the right volume. And then also we had a backing track. I tried to actually rip the actual parts from the record so that it would have the acoustic guitar on it. Like Won't Get Fooled Again has the acoustic guitar on it. And then Mike for some reason, couldn't lock in with that one as well. I think because of the click on it. And then I tried to record some acoustic guitar to the one we already had. And again, it just didn't work live. So we needed to just fix the track. We were doing Bellboy for a while, and there was something that happened with the backing track where it used to throw us every time. So then we did it without the backing track. And it worked without the backing track, but for some reason we just stopped playing it. So we might try and do that one again. I can't think of anything else that we tried. Oh, we did. Then this is a shocker, right? But we did try and do Magic Bus, and I think again Mike was just never keen on doing that one because we just had a sort of discussion about what version are we doing. The single version of Magic Bus? Are we doing Live at Leeds version of Magic Bus? Are we doing some sort of our own version of Magic Bus that we will put together, or are we just getting out there and winging it? So we just dropped it in the end. I would like to put that one back in, and people ask for that one a lot.
Just like at a Who gig.
Yeah. And we did have a lot of people call out for Forest the Spider, but for some reason we've never. Well, again, Max is not that. It's just that you get certain songs that they might be easy songs to do, but for some reason they just feel a bit awkward. And I think that one. But that's intended to go back into the set at some point.
I'm sure you'd enjoy killing the spider at the end of the song, like Pete does as well. If you did that,
yeah, I used to do because we used to do it in the set before when Craig, our old bassist, was in the band, and I used to sometimes do that of going Red Boris jumping on the stuff.
It's just reminded me. I don't think I've talked to you about this before, but I was talking to someone about it a little while ago. But when I saw the Who at Shepherd's Bush in 1999 at the second of their Christmas
Yeah.
shows, there was these two guys behind. I was only 19, but there was two guys behind me who were just moaning all the way through it. And I think they did the real me. And Roger said before they started it, they hadn't rehearsed it and hadn't played it for 2 or 3 years. And it sounded really bloody good considering they hadn't even rehearsed it. And this guy behind was like, oh, that was shit. You should have rehearsed it and all this sort of stuff. And then they did Boris the Spider, which I thought, great, getting to hear Boris the Spider live for the first time. He finished it, and this guy shouted out, that's the second worst song in history.
Why were they there?
I don't know. Like, A, yeah, why are you there? You're just moaning all the way through it. And B, what is the worst song in history? The second worst song in history. I mean, wasn't it Hendrix's favourite Who song, apparently?
It could have been, yeah.
I should have turned around and said that. I'm not sure if I knew that at the time, but...
I mean, yeah, that gig was a gig that I sadly missed, and I would have loved to have been there. If only could go back in time and just take that person's ticket, because they're obviously not appreciating it. Because, yeah, I get it. Like in '99, like if you watch the Vegas job DVD, that's a very rough gig. There's lots of sort of it's quite sloppy, but it's brilliant because at that time the Who, a sloppy Who, were still amazing because they were, you know, they sort of got on with doing the song. If it went wrong, Pete would still play something amazing. John was there. It was a car crash for the Who in around that time. Oh, I'd still love to see that.
Yeah, it was great because it was kind of like a homecoming, and I don't know if it's because it was around Christmas or they just didn't feel any pressure, but it just, I mean, it was a great gig and everything. I think they all had colds because I've listened back to the bootleg of it quite recently, and they are struggling. All three of them are struggling vocally at points, but they just seemed in really good spirits, and they did some rare stuff like they did Pure and Easy, and they did Getting in Tune, which was just so good. And I think they did about 5 or 6 songs in the encore. Just, I think Pete even comments at the time, like it's like Roger doesn't want to leave the stage because he'll then start playing another song on his acoustic. And they did they did Naked Eye in the encore. Oh, it was great.
Yeah, what a set.
Yeah, it was so good. Okay, I'll ask you this final question, and it's probably not an easy one to answer, or it might be really easy. I don't know, but can you sum up in a few words or sentences just what the Who mean to you?
That is a tough one. I think the Who, for me, they were the band. Number one, they felt like a band that I discovered, even though obviously they weren't, and loads of people have this similar feeling. But I grew up with my brother 10 years older than me, playing a lot of stuff, and a lot of the music that I got into was because I heard him play it. And he did play Who songs, but only like a couple here and there. So it felt like a band that I got into myself, and that I really, I was the one that wanted to delve into their history. And for me, they're the only band that kind of sum up so many times in life the way I feel about things. There'd be times where I'd want to write a song because I got into writing, I got into music wanting to write songs and do my own music, and I'd want to write a song about something, and I'd listen to a Who song and go, he's already written it. Do you know what I mean? That's what I wanted to say, and they've already kind of said it, and I don't find there's any other band like that. So they feel like a band that's very much from my psyche, like from my soul. There's even ridiculous stuff. There's a song that Pete Townsend wrote in 1965, or possibly before that. It's on the My Generation Super Deluxe box set called "All the Girls I Could Have Had," and it's about him going like, basically, if I had the nerve, I would have had more women than I deserve. And I sort of had that in my life a lot, where I'd be like, years later realise, that girl was probably interested in me. I didn't do anything there. And there's even a thing where I'd we played a gig somewhere. I'd met a girl, and then I'd arranged to meet up with her again a couple of weeks later. And by the time this sort of happened, she'd already got another partner. And there's a line in that song about him traveling to meet a girl, and like she's already got a ring on her hand. I'm like, he wrote this about me like 20 years before I was born or whatever. And there's no other band that's done that. So yeah, they just feel very close to my soul. And I guess also just the way there's no other band that could kind of do moving, touching songs that well, and also really angry, aggressive, loud rock songs like that.
Yeah, I spoke about it with a few people, but they are one of those bands that kind of have all these opposing forces, but somehow these forces come together and it just works.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, you listen to something like Sunrise, which is, a beautiful, tender song. And then, you listen to some of the absolute mayhem of them performing, Young Man Blues live. It's just like, how is that coming from the same people or the same person,
Yeah.
But that sums up just, people are multifaceted. We have that range of emotion. And I think The Who express that range of emotion that's in the human condition better than any other band that I've listened to.
And there we have it, my conversation with Dante DiCarlo. It's been a lot of fun getting to know Dante over the past few months, since that pre-gig pint in the Cavern Pub. He's a really cool guy, and I'm genuinely honoured to have been asked to conduct the interview with him on stage at the 100 Club gig on 4th of September that I mentioned earlier. If you're a Talking About The Who member, then you can listen to a bonus episode featuring more of my conversation with Dante as soon as you finish this episode. It costs just £3 or $3 a month to become a member, and that financial support goes a long way to ensuring that we can keep this podcast going. And as a thank you, you'll have access to a gradually expanding archive of bonus episodes, and you'll also receive invites to be part of our exclusive livestream show that we're calling The Members Room. To find out more, go to patreon.com/Talking About The Who. Patreon is spelled Patreon. Patreon.com/Talking About The Who. Another way you can support us financially is by either making a one-off donation or setting up a monthly donation at buymeacoffee.com/Talking About The Who. And if you'd prefer to support us without having to fork out any money, you can give us a 5-star rating on the podcast app you choose to listen to us on, which will really help us out. To stay up to date with Talking About The Who, you can follow us on Bluesky, Facebook and Instagram. And if you'd like to watch video extracts of our interviews, as well as other Who-related content, head over to our YouTube channel and subscribe. You'll find these and all the other relevant links for this episode in the show notes. Finally, a big thank you to our special guest, Dante DiCarlo. Be sure to pick up a copy of his new book, The Who, album by album, and maybe we'll see you at the 100 Club in September. And that's it for this episode. I'll be back in 2 weeks' time when we'll be featuring our first ever return guest, the fabulous Jodie Linscott. Until then, thank you for listening, look after yourselves, and as Roger Daltrey always says, be lucky. Goodbye.